Inbound air passengers can now take designated taxis to quarantine hotels. A call on the public to be careful of heat stroke. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The city reported around 3,900 new local COVID cases and some 220 imported infections. That's in addition to 3 COVID-related deaths. Meanwhile, inbound passengers can now take designated taxis to quarantine hotels. Jackie Lin reports.
With more new arrivals flying into Hong Kong these days comes a higher demand for point-to-point transport services. With that, the government will ratchet up the frequency of these free coach services. And starting today, inbound travelers can choose to take designated taxis to quarantine hotels at their own expense. Under the scheme, 100 taxis will run from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day. These cabbies must don protective gear and passengers must use the back seat of the taxi. Fares will be calculated based on the meter. Participating taxis will also receive a daily subsidy of $1,500 as they are barred from picking up other Hong Kong residents.
I'm sure that this will meet the demand of some of the landing passengers, and we will review the demand and adjust the service level to suit.
For the local pandemic situation, schools reported some staggering 1,100 COVID cases today. 8 schools have been slapped with a week-long suspension on classes reporting multiple infections. Among them is YN College Kowloon, which logged more than 20 infections spreading across 11 classes. They include a choir class, which involves some 15 infections. Investigations are underway on whether the extracurricular class is connected with another volleyball class, which saw 4 cases. And the outbreak at Sha Tin Hospital continues to unfold after authorities detected 7 more linked cases involving 3 patients and 4 medical workers. To shore up defenses at public hospitals, the bi-weekly PCR test requirement for high-risk medical staff will be extended to the psychiatric and palliative care departments this week.
The workload we anticipate which we can manageable. So I don't think that will be affect our usual services. And we think, as we have just mentioned, it really did help us to early pick up those positive cases.
The hospital authority is also mulling to beef up the PCR test requirement for other frontline hospital workers and visitors to public hospitals. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Macau logged 4 new COVID cases, continuing its zero COVID streak for the second day. On the first workday after the enclave entered into a 2-week-long consultation period, a significant flow of people returned to the city center. Several bank branches also reopened their doors, adjusting their opening hours from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. The Macau government said it is continuing to monitor the situation and requires high-risk individuals to undergo PCR tests to avoid a rebound. Meanwhile, those who worked or stayed in 2 key areas in the city's northern district for more than 2 hours must undergo 1 round of PCR tests in the upcoming 2 days. Scorching heat continues to sear the city as the Hong Kong Observatory recorded 35.8 degrees this afternoon. The weather forecaster called on the public to be careful of heat stroke and to replenish sufficient amounts of water. Timothy Lee has more.
The sun blazing, clouds nowhere to be seen. The city continues to struggle against the burning heat, as several districts in Hong Kong reported temperatures between 35 and 36 degrees, while Sheung Shui recorded a high of 38.8 degrees. In recent days, the city was hit by intense heat because of the surface warming effects of the subtropical ridge, but the weather did not seem to affect those determined to exercise, while many who work outdoors had to rehydrate themselves on several occasions. This waterworks engineer said it's necessary for him to take a break sometimes, but he's fully prepared to work under extreme temperatures. Staff working at COVID testing centers didn't fare much better, and even increased fan power had trouble cooling down those wearing protective clothing. Such as this worker, who said she felt like she was going to a sauna every day, adding that a fan is simply not enough. Contractors noted that they will try to install air conditioners in as many test centers as possible, and are in the process of solving the workers' heat issue with the government. Meanwhile, other casualties of the heat wave are the city's homeless population. This 78-year-old man said he could hide under the shade of the tree in order to avoid the sun, but the recent rise in temperatures made every location unbearably hot. Although the Home Affairs Department announced that it will establish temporary night heat shelters across Hong Kong, they are only open to the public from 10:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. Some voices in the Legislative Council are pushing the government to extend the shelter's opening hours throughout the day and to increase security on the premises for those staying there. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Meantime, Pope Francis is in Canada for a week-long visit, but this will not be a typical trip filled with parades and celebrations. Instead, his trip is to apologize to Indigenous people for abuses by missionaries at residential schools. This report from NBC News.
This is a papal trip like no other. Pope Francis arriving in Canada to apologize to its Indigenous peoples. 3 survivors meeting the Pope at the airport, representing the thousands who were abused at Catholic-run residential schools sanctioned by the government. Francis will visit the site of the former Ermineskin Residential School. 150,000 Indigenous children were forced to attend the schools over a century. 6,000 died. The Catholic Church ran most of the schools in Canada, as well as some in the U.S. for Native Americans. The horror part of Parker's family legacy.
They took away my grandmother's songs. They beat her. They sexually assaulted, the nuns sexually assaulted my mother.
These are the difficult stories the Pope will hear on this trip, at a time when he's having trouble walking. Now the Pope begins an apology tour for the sins of the Church, anxiously awaited by the wounded.
It's time to heal.
Survivors stress this is not the end of the process, but the start. And it will continue tomorrow when the Pope comes to this Edmonton Catholic Church with a significant Indigenous community.
Coming up after the break, China's Wentian Lab module docks with the core component of the Tiangong space station. A volcanic eruption on Japan's main southern island of Kyushu. And down under, Sydney shrouded in fog early today. Welcome back to TVB News. China has added a laboratory to its permanent orbiting space station. The Wentian Lab module docked with the Tiangong station's core module in the early hours of today. The 3 taikonauts aboard the space station oversaw Wentian's arrival and docking. Caleb Leung reports.
At around 10 a.m., the 3 Shenzhou 14 taikonauts opened the hatch door of Wentian and entered the module. This is the first time that Chinese taikonauts entered a lab module in orbit. Chen Dong, commander of the Shenzhou 14 mission, said the construction of China's space station has taken another big step. He added that the trio in space couldn't be prouder and happier. Liu Yang noted that the station has entered the era of multi-module operation, while Cai Zhuzhe promised that they will continue to work hard to build, maintain, and operate the space station well. The Wentian Lab module successfully docked with the Tiangong station's main Tianhe living module at 3:13 a.m. Monday after a 13-hour flight. Zhao Xuemei, chief engineer of the Wentian Lab module mission, said it was the first time that China practiced in-orbit docking between large modules of the space station. She added that in general, the whole process was under accurate control and the task was successfully accomplished. The Wentian is designed for science and biology experiments. Like the Tianhe, the Wentian Lab module is also equipped with living facilities for the astronauts, including 3 sleeping areas, a toilet, and a kitchen. With a weight of 23 tons, the lab module is heavier than any other single-module spacecraft currently in space, according to the state-owned Global Times. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Turning to the UK, the two candidates for the Conservative leadership will face off in a TV debate today. Speaking ahead of the debate, Rishi Sunak says he will announce the closure of all Confucius institutes in the country if he beats Liz Truss and becomes Prime Minister. According to The Guardian, Sunak yesterday said he plans to ban all 30 Confucius institutions in the UK. He claims that Beijing's soft power is enhanced by taxpayer-funded Mandarin teaching in schools being channeled through the organizations. Confucius institutions are joint ventures between a host university, a partner university in China, and the Chinese International Education Foundation. Sunak also said he will order British universities to reveal any foreign funding partnerships worth more than £50,000 to curtail Chinese influence. He will also review all UK-Chinese research partnerships that might unwittingly assist Beijing's attempt to dominate future technologies or have a military purpose. Today, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said it urges individual British politicians not to make an issue out of China or hype the so-called China threat. Chief Executive John Lee is set to deliver his first policy address on October 19th. Today, the CE launched a public consultation. The government will be hosting around 30 consultation sessions to listen to opinions and recommendations of lawmakers and members of the public. The CE and his governing team will also be reaching out to the public by making community visits. Residents can also submit ideas through the website on the policy address. Dozens of people have been evacuated from two towns in Japan's main southern island of Kyushu after a volcano erupted Sunday night. The Sakurajima volcano spewed ash and volcanic rocks into the air. Some large rocks fell 2.5 kilometers away from the volcano. Pictures show orange flames flashing near the crater of the volcano, with dark smoke billowing above. 51 people in two towns facing the volcano were evacuated. The alert level was at the highest level of 5 issued by the Japan Meteorological Agency. No deaths or injuries were reported, but people were asked to be wary of falling rocks or mudslides. Sakurajima used to be an island but became a peninsula in 1914 when an eruption killed 58 people. Sydney and surrounding areas were shrouded in fog early Monday, leading to flight delays. A quite unusual phenomenon for Australia's commercial centre. The fog hung mysteriously with just some skyscrapers visible, poking through the thick blanket of fog. Flight delays were reported with people lining up outside the terminal. Qantas said on Twitter a number of flights were held up. Motorists were also warned about reduced visibility. The fog had largely cleared by mid-morning. That is the news. Money Matters is up shortly. Bye for now.